Hello, gorgeouses. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. I am your host, Marli Ansel, at Marli Ansel on the Instagrams. And this is the morning show where you come to your daily dose of inspiration and level up into your highest being. It is all about real life, but we make it magical. And there's so much to talk about. So let's dive in. How are we feeling? How was your full moon in Scorpio last night? Let's talk about it. But wait, today's topic is pulling back to slingshot forward. There is so much to talk about in terms of the energetics and the quantum physics of this. And I'm so excited to bring this topic today. It just kind of came out of the blue, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. So I'm going to share with you guys the energy and why it is 100% required to pull back before we slingshot forward. But before we do, let's talk about this moon. How was your full moon last night? Full moon in Scorpio. Big moon. There's things about it beyond what I know. And last night, when the moon hit the fullness, it is also squaring Pluto. Now, what that means, when we have a square, essentially what that means is that there is opportunity for growth, for slingshotting forward, if we put in the work. So squares can feel like pressure. It can feel like you're like you're like squeezing in, but there's a lot of opportunity there with it. So yesterday, by the way, I'm Scorpio rising, and this Pluto was dead center right in the middle between my Pluto, my Venus, and conjuncting my ascendant. That is astrology talk for this is freaking huge in terms of me leveling up into my next level. Now, what I feel it is, so anytime that you have something that's conjunct your ascendant, it is essentially getting you to rise more into that energy. So your ascendant sign is your rising sign. That's the sign that was on the horizon when you were born. How cool is this, right? It was the sign that was on the horizon when you were born. That sign is like, it's how people perceive you. So your sun sign is what you feel you are internally. So my sun sign is Virgo. I'm very much a Virgo. But the way that people receive me is through Scorpio, which is my rising sign. So the energy that people perceive you as is your rising sign. Your sun sign is what you feel on the inside. So full moon last night in Scorpio, squaring Pluto, not my Pluto, squaring the Pluto in the sky, essentially is saying it's time for us to transform into our power. That is essentially what it's saying. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Both of these represent death and rebirth. Both of them represent deep transformation. Depending on where this moon and where the Scorpio energy is in your chart, it is asking you to rise in your power in that area. Not even asking, it's kind of shoving you off the cliff. You know what I mean? Like it's saying it's time. It's time. So we're going to talk about today the slingshot forward after the pullback and why the pullback is so important. By the way, guys, we have crazy wild witch hair today because I didn't do anything with it. So enjoy. Moon earrings, crazy witch hair. We're here for all the vibes. So moon in Scorpio, full moon in Scorpio is asking you to transform. It's saying it's time. Like essentially, like you've been doing a lot of work. It's time to now slingshot forward into who you are actually meant to become, into that power. Okay, so before we get into the slingshot forward, let me break this down for you real quick. That little baby planet, Pluto, is one of the most powerful planets that affects us all. When Pluto does its thing, essentially what it does is it comes in, this is the death part of the rebirth. It comes in and it destroys anything that cannot sustain. So, said differently, it will destroy anything built by the ego. Anything built that was not for the highest good of all, Pluto is going to come in and knock it down. Now, what's cool about this is that Pluto will let it live for a time because all things are used for our highest good. So even when there are things in our world, there's things you've done. All right, we're not all so perfect beings, right? There's things we've done that have been more from an ego motivation than a soul-based motivation. The way that you can know if you have built something from an ego motivation is you have done it out of fear. You've done it to get something rather than saying, how can I serve out? How can I give? You have done it from a place of, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to XYZ. You see what I'm saying? Ego is very much about the self and survival. And it's not thinking much about service and soul and expansion and what we're here to give. Now, we all have both inside of us, but our job on this human journey is which side of it are we going to amplify? Which side are we going to build from? Now, the caveat and the catch is that you can build from ego for a minute. It's going to take you through the ringer on a lot of lessons, a lot of healing, a lot of growth. And then Pluto's going to destroy it, and you're going to have to start over and build from soul anyway. But it's kind of cool, isn't it? It's like, okay, so if I know that, like the more you know, the easier life is. If I know that, then I know if I build from the right energy, anything, by the way, anything, business, your relationship, your definition of self, your money, your fulfillment, your work and service, your career, anything. If I build from the right energy, from that soul-based energy, then nothing can knock it down. Nothing can touch it. It will sustain and it will grow forever. But it takes a little bit of training to get there, doesn't it? Because we've got to tame that fear mind. We've got to calm that ego down, that ego that constantly feels like we're running out of time. Y'all know that feeling, right? Like, I've got to hurry up. I've got to get this done. I've got to make that money. I've got to get married. I've got to get the kids. I'm behind. That's not real. That's ego. And if you react to that energy, you're going to build something that's going to get knocked down. You feel me on this? So back it up, because when it gets knocked down, what does that feel like for us? When things aren't working, when we feel like we're behind, when we feel like we've put so much work and effort into something and it still hasn't built up, it's still not doing what we want it to do, what do we feel like? We feel like we've pulled back. We feel like we're going backwards. We're behind. We're supposed to be up there and we're back here. We feel that pullback energy. But that pullback energy is so important because in the pullback, one, you can see more clearly. But two, in the pullback, you are building tension. And you picture a slingshot or a bow and arrow. You feel that tension of the rope, right? The more you pull back, the more tension there is. And eventually it feels as though something is going to break. Now, in our minds, we think it's us. We're like, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to break down. I'm going to die. But what it really is that tension energy building. So when we have to pull back, because what we were doing was not working, there's a tension that builds. And if we're doing it properly, if we're not doing the same thing we did before, building from that ego, fear, survival energy, if we're not doing that anymore, and we start to really look at the whole big picture and say, okay, let me pull back, because as I pull back, I can see it more clearly. And once I can see it more clearly, now I know how to go about it differently. There's going to be a feeling like something's got to give. Y'all know that feeling, right? You're like, it's something, it's building up, it's about to bust through, it's about to break down, something's got to give. What happens when you build that tension so much to the point where it's like it cannot go anymore, and then you let go? What happens? Slingshot forward. We are no different. Everything in its growth cycle contracts before it expands. If you want an actual video of this, just Google a time-lapse video of a flower growing. Just Google that. Time-lapse video of a flower growing. You will see that in nature, everything goes like this. Everything contracts before it expands. Everything contracts before it expands. Everything contracts before it expands. It's part of the growth cycle. But humans, in our lovely conscious ways, make things wrong. Listen, I am not elite in this. I do the same thing. I get mad as hell when things don't go my way. When things are not operating the way that I want them to operate, I get frustrated. I get all of the things. But you're human, right? And knowing the process, it helps you to understand that that pullback is part of your slingshot forward. You got to know it. You got to know it with every fiber of your being. You got to know that every step of the way is supporting you growing and expanding into that wholeness that you crave so much. Everything is supporting that. And so if you have a pullback moment, you got to know that that's part of the growth. That's part of what you're stepping into. That's part of the next level. So if you're in a season, and let me know, those of you who are on live, are you in a season of the pullback? Just drop a Y in the comments if it's yes for you. Are you in a season of the pullback? Are you in a season where you're like, ego's on overdrive, going like, we got to hurry up. We don't have time for this. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. We got to be mindful of that. Chris says yes. We have to be mindful of that because in the pullback, our ego is going to go on overdrive, isn't it? Sure enough. Ego is going to go on overdrive saying, we don't have time for this. We have to hurry up. We've got to get this done. And in that moment, what you've got to really, really look at is why. Why is the ego freaking out, saying you got to hurry up and get somewhere? And what you'll find is that it points straight to the part of you that feels as though you are not worthy unless you already have that thing that you've got to hurry up and get. Now, this is a big moment, right? Aaron said, I don't even need to comment. You already know. Yes, Chris, it is. It's so uncomfortable. Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. We all just want to be expanding and achieving, right? But literally impossible. Literally impossible. So the ego is going to go on overdrive. Now, again, everything is set up for our success. So the ego is going on overdrive saying, we don't have time, we don't have time, we don't have time. You feel like you're going to die if you don't get the thing. You got to go there. You got to like get that next sale in your business. You got to hurry up and find the partner. You got to make sure your kids are doing whatever they need to be doing to be perfect. You've got to get the promotion. You got to beat someone else. It's like, it's all competition and scarcity and racing and all of this stuff. If we can come into awareness around it and we can be like, oh, okay, ego, I see you. I see you pushing the wrong energy. Now, the cool thing about it is that when ego is loud like that, you can understand what's been holding you back. You can see it so clearly in that moment. Now, what I teach and what is so important is that you've got to be able to see it without judging yourself. You know what I mean? Because we've all got the ego, and the ego is strong. It's a strong energy, but you're the one who's giving it its energy. You're the one giving it energy. So if I can come into awareness and just realize ego is just doing its thing, ego is just being an ego, then I can go, okay, that's not true. I know that's not true. And I can see that it's pointing me directly to the part of me that's asking for my acceptance of myself as I am. Oh, the lessons that are the lessons of a lifetime. It's pointing me directly to the part of me that I need to accept as I am. Because why do we chase anything? Because we feel that we would be more worthy, better, happier in the having of it. This is why we chase things. If I just have that, then. And when you feel that race of time, like I've got to do, I've got to get it, I've got to da 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 da, pause for a moment. Recognize the ego feeling. The more you do this, the better you will get at it to recognize ego. Ego is a very distinct feeling. It's not calm. Okay. I call it the crazy chihuahua. When your crazy chihuahua is running circles like a maniac, you can be sure your ego is rearing up and it's running the show right now. Your job is to be aware of it. You got to be aware of it. When it's going like that, crazy, 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 it's like, oh my God, I've got to do this. And if I don't do this, da 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 da, and then that's going to happen, and this is going to happen, and people are going to think that you see, that leads you right there. I'm afraid of what people are going to think of me. Why? Because I've not fully established my own sense of self. I haven't established who I am with me yet. I'm trying to prove myself in the world through achievement. I'm trying to prove myself in the world through how things look. I'm trying to prove myself in the world by what I have. Ego, 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 pointing you directly at the actual root of the issue, which is that I have not built my own definition of self yet. I have been relying on the world to tell me I'm amazing, and I'm only as amazing as my last achievement. Ooh, with the big, big stuff today. So, ego is a very distinct energy. When you can recognize it, you've got to recognize it as a non-truth. I mean, that's just really what it comes down to. You're not running out of time. Time isn't even real. We're not going to get into that today, but it's not. There's no running out of time. Like, whose time? Time literally is the only thing that doesn't run out. I mean, I just want you to think about that. Like, time goes on forever. Time is the only thing, literally the only thing that doesn't run out. It just keeps going. So it's not true, but it is showing us the part of ourselves that's calling for healing, that's calling for a level up, that's calling for a more solidified definition of self, a stronger relationship between you and you. And that's the work, right? Like, that's the work. That's everything that we're doing every day of our lives if we are conscious of it. But that's the whole point, you know? So it's like, you think about in terms of the spiritual journey is not about, can I achieve enough and collect enough outside of me, right? That's all good and well, and it's fun when it's in its proper place. But when we're using that to validate our worth, we're going to be in for it. You know what I mean? And where is it going to lead you? In the end, it's always going to lead you back within. So the journey, the spiritual journey in this experience that we're having of life is all about defining myself more, knowing who I am so that I can be of service to the entire collective. And this is what, like I said yesterday, when everything you do is for you and you realize that it was never about you, that's when you've won. And if that lands on you right now, gold. But if it doesn't, it will one day. When you do everything you do is because it brings you joy, because you love it. It lights your whole soul. And you realize that it was never actually about you anyway, that's when you've won. You've won. Because everything that we become is so interconnected to everything else that us choosing to come into our wholeness of self, to really focus on ourselves and say, can I be the best version of me possible? Am I being true to myself? Am I being authentic? And authentic, and I think this gets really misconstrued sometimes. Authentic is not like hot mess express. Can be, I guess, but it's really not that surface level. Authentic is, am I following the joys that light my whole world up? Am I being my whole self and not wearing a mask and contorting and distorting who I am dependent on who's in front of me? Am I honoring what matters to me? Am I putting my values and priorities first? You see what I'm saying? Like, authenticity is discovering who you are and then making that the only way that you live. It's different because a lot of us, we're still following these unconscious society rules. And it's not your fault. Like, this is the human journey. You know what I mean? But we're still doing a lot of stuff because it's what's expected. Because it is what society has told us we're supposed to do. We're still doing a lot of stuff that way. You know what I mean? And so it's just becoming more and more aware of it. And the best way to do it, I teach this in the spiritual coach training program. So the spiritual coach training program is my 6-month certification on all of the energy work, the subconscious work, how to coach somebody through identity shifting. It's gold. It is a gold program. In that program, one of the things that I teach, the best way to coach your client is to have them go after what lights their whole soul up. Because in that process, they're going to discover everything that they've been doing that's not actually who they are. It's going to come up, and it's going to come up loud. It's going to just all of those belief systems that said, but I have to be like this, I can't do that because I'm supposed to do this. All of those thoughts and feelings that says I can't pursue something that actually makes me happy, I have to make money. You see that belief system right away. I can't do what makes me happy, it won't make money. I've got to pay. Every belief system, every unconscious limit, every old stuck emotion and wound will come up. It will come up. It's supposed to. When we pursue our highest alignment, when we pursue our joy, when we pursue our excitement, we will be faced with everything that is a non-truth, that is not who we are, but we've been holding on to. And that's the work. And that's the work. That's what I'm doing all day long, doing with every single client that I have. That's the work that I teach you how to do on yourself in becoming a conscious creator. And that's the work that I teach other people who want to be coaches how to take their clients through it. That's the work. It's the journey. It's the experience. We're supposed to do it. We're not supposed to be like, okay, what will make the most money? And then we literally don't ask any other question, do we? We don't go, what will make the most money and also allow me to be present with my family when I need to and when I want to, and also give me time freedom, and also bring me joy. And we don't do that, do we? We just go like, okay, I've got to make money. What do I need to do? But that's changing. It's changing. Now, I'm not shaming money. Money is fantastic, but it needs to be put in its proper place. Money is not the end all be all. Money is a tool for the life that we want to live. Oh my God, do I want to say this right now? I don't know. I'm going to say this really, really quick. We're not going to go into it. But I heard this the other day and it clicked so hard for me. And so it might click hard for you. You pay for money with your time. You pay for money with your time. So your objective in that, if we want to be smart, efficient humans, is how do I pay less time for more money? We're not going to go into it. We're not going to go into it right now, but that like blew me wide open because it just made so much sense. It just made so much sense. Anywho, pulling back to slingshot forward is part of the process. Your job in that is to not make the pullback wrong. Leverage it because it's happening for your good. We have such an idea of like linear time in our mind. It's not real. It doesn't exist. As much as you can, throw it out the window. Like, yes, we've got to be to our appointments on time. I've got to show up at 10-ish for the morning show. Like, yes. And the idea that something is going to take you a long time to get where you want to go is completely inaccurate. It's not about time. It's about accuracy of energy. It's about a frequency. So if I can pull back, we'll use time here. If I can pull back for a week and get my energy right, get my move those energy blocks that have been anchoring me down, if I can shift the mindset to a belief system that supports who I want to be and where I'm going, if I can shift my internal being out of that scarcity ego and into the confident higher self soul that knows, if I can pull back for a week and do that, then when I let go of that pullback, I'm going so much faster than had I kept pushing in the exact same energy. Does that click for you? Does that make sense? It's not about what you do, like action-wise in terms of like hustle. This thumbs up thing is so funny to me. It's not about what you do, and it's not about the pace at which you do it. It's not about hurrying up and get it done. It's about the alignment of energy. No matter what, everything's matching your energy. It's got nothing to do with anything else. So if I can pull back and just ask myself, like, okay, what's the season of pullback asking of me? That's a great question to ask yourself. What is the season of pullback asking of me? Then you'll find right away, like, ooh, I see where that janky energy was showing up. There was ego all up in that. Fear, scarcity, gotta hurry up, all of these things. Oh, okay. So let me clean that up. Let me get it in place for where I want to go. Because as you prepare the energy for where you want to go, there you'll be. It's not about time. It's about alignment. Cool. I love you guys. So if you want to come into my work, you guys know I've been talking about it all week. 50% off of becoming a conscious creator. Pop yourself in that program. That is going to teach you how to do this energy work. It's going to teach you how to realign yourself. Pull back for a week. Take a week off. Pull back for a week. Get yourself right so that you can do that slingshot forward. If you want the 50% off of that program, just comment creator and a link will be sent to you right away with the 50% off code and all the details for the program. You're going to love it. This is not something that you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have learned my own power to manifest and put myself in alignment. Like, you're going to love it. You're going to absolutely love it. This is the work that works. And in truth, it's the only work that works. We'll move on. So 50% off. I did also mention the spiritual coach training program. We're not open for enrollment yet, but we will be probably within the next couple of months. I'm realigning it, getting it ready and prepared. So if you're interested in that 6-month certification program, you can just send me a message and I'll give you some details on it so that you can be prepared. Okay. All right, my loves, I love you so much. We're going to wrap. If you haven't already, please hit like, subscribe, and share the show. It helps us to grow our impact. And Friday, we have Q&A. So if anything that we've been talking about has popped some questions into your head, please feel free to send me a DM with your question. And then we will dive into it on our Friday Q&As. And lastly, we will not be here next week. We will not be here next week. I am going out of town. So we're taking the week off. We will not be here next week. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Mwah, mwah, mwah. As always, I'm here for any questions you have, and I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of The Morning Show. Goodbye, my loves.